Hey everyone, welcome back to Just a Dude in the News on Just a Dude Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan, just a guy with a microphone here to break down the biggest stories in the United States from April 18th to the 25th, 2025. Please bear with me this week as I am battling a cold. It has been a busy week with everything from international disputes to tragic events and economic shifts. I'm going to walk you through the top stories with a clear, no-nonsense take, keeping it real but relaxed. So settle in with your coffee or whatever keeps you going, and let's dive into what's been happening. A quick thanks to all of you for tuning in, whether you're listening at home, on your commute, or maybe in the gym. You're what makes this show happen. If you're enjoying it, please hit that subscribe button, leave a review, or share it with a friend. All right, let's get into it. Here's what's been making headlines across the country this week. First up, we've got a complex situation involving Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who's currently imprisoned in El Salvador. This story is creating tension between the U.S. and El Salvador, as it's got a federal judge in the states frustrated with the Department of Justice. She ordered Garcia's release, but progress has been slow, and it's turning into a diplomatic issue. It's understandable as El Salvador does not have to conform to U.S. laws. And U.S. senators even gotten involved, which shows this is more than just a legal case. It's becoming politics. Garcia's situation seems tied to broader political dynamics. While the details aren't fully clear, he might be caught in El Salvador's aggressive anti-crime policies under President Bukele. The U.S. is pushing for his release, possibly because he's connected to American interests, but El Salvador's government isn't budging. This standoff highlights the challenges of U.S. influence in Central America, especially when another country is playing hardball. The judge's impatience suggests the Justice Department is either struggling to navigate international law or facing resistance from El Salvador. Meanwhile, the senator's visits to Garcia indicates this could have bigger implications, maybe affecting trade or immigration policies. From this standpoint, it looks like this is just a political stunt from the left. It's a reminder, though, that global politics can be messy and can get messy fast, and one person's case can spark a much larger debate. For us here in the States, this story shows how interconnected our world is. It's not just about Garcia, it's about how the U.S. handles its role on the global stage. I'll be watching to see how this unfolds, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Should the U.S. push harder, or is this time to step back? Drop me a message and let's talk. Next, we're turning into a tragic story out of Florida. On April 18th, the deadly shooting at Florida State University left the community in shock. Investigators are still piecing together what happened, but the updates have been described as chilling. This is one of those stories that hits hard, especially for anyone with ties to college campus. Reports indicate the shooting took place on FSU's campus, disrupting what's supposed to be a safe space for students. We don't have full details on the victims or the shooter yet, but the fact that lives were lost has sparked grief and fear across Tallahassee. Universities are places for learning and growth, and when violence like this happens, it shakes everyone to the core. This incident fits into the broader conversation about gun violence in America. We've seen too many tragedies at schools, theaters, and public spaces, and each one reignites debates about safety and solutions. FSU is likely tightening security, and parents are probably on edge. It's a tough reminder of how quickly things can change in a place that feels familiar. As the investigation continues, I hope we get clarity and some sense of justice for those affected. If you're in Florida or have loved ones at FSU, my heart goes out to you. What can we do to prevent these tragedies? It's a heavy question, and I'd love to hear your perspective. Reach out on social media and let's keep this conversation going. Let's shift gear to the economy, where President Trump's tariff policies are making waves again. Earlier this month, he announced a 125% tariff on China and a 10% tariff on most other countries. But this week, he paused some of those tariffs for 90 days, except for China's. By April 25th, we're seeing China retaliate with 84% tariffs on U.S. goods, while talks of trade deals with South Korea are in the air. It's a lot to unpack. The goal of these tariffs is to protect American industries like manufacturing by making foreign goods more expensive. The pause on tariffs for countries like South Korea suggests Trump's open to negotiation. But the ongoing clash with China is causing uncertainty. Companies like American Airlines are pulling their 2025 forecasts, worried about how this impacts travel and costs. Other industries like U.S. whiskey distilleries are nervous about potential EU tariffs on their exports. For everyday folks, this means higher prices could be coming. From electronics to cars to your favorite bourbon, tariffs can hit your wallet hard. On the flip side, supporters argue they create jobs by boosting American production. It's a trade off, and right now, it feels like we're all waiting to see who blinks first in this global standoff. What's next? The administration's hinting at deals to ease tensions, but with China and the EU pushing back, it's anyone's guess. I'm curious how this will affect us in the months ahead. Are tariffs the right move, or are they setting us up for trouble? Let me know what you think. And maybe stock up on whiskey just in case. For most reports locally, prices seem to be steady or falling at this time. Now for a serious international story. On April 18th, U.S. airstrikes in Yemen killed at least 58 people and injured over 100, according to reports. This is part of an ongoing U.S. operations targeting groups like the Houthis, who are backed by Iran and have been disrupting Red Sea shipping. It's a stark reminder of the human toll in these conflicts. The airstrikes were likely aimed at Houthi military targets, but the high casualty numbers raise questions about precision and civilian impact. The U.S. says these actions are about protecting global trade and security, but when you hear about dozens dead and many more injured, it's tough not to wonder about the bigger picture. Yemen's been a conflict zone for years, and the U.S. role there is complicated. This story is getting attention alongside other global conflicts, which shows how interconnected these issues really are. The Houthis' attacks on shipping affect everything from oil prices to consumer goods, so there's a reason the U.S. is involved. Still, the loss of life makes it hard to see this as just a strategic move. It's real people, real families, and real consequences. For us, this is a chance to think about America's role in far-off conflicts. Are these strikes making us safer, or are they pulling us deeper into a messy situation? I don't have all the answers, but I'd love to hear your take. Hit me up on social media and let's talk about what this means for the world and for us here at home. My take on this situation is that the strikes are necessary. While loss of life is extremely regrettable, we must place responsibility on those that created the terroristic attacks on maritime ships. When you F around, you find out. All right, let's lighten things up with a story that's got nature lovers buzzing. Parts of the Midwest are seeing a rare double emergence of cicada broods, a phenomenon that hasn't happened in over 200 years. These noisy critters are crawling out of the ground in states like Illinois and Iowa, and it's turning into a natural spectacle. Cicadas spend years underground before emerging to sing, mate, and then disappear. This year, brood 13 and brood 14 are hitting the scene at the same time, creating a chorus that's impossible to ignore. Scientists say it's a rare event because those broods operate on different cycles, 17 years and 13 years. And their overlap is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Locals are either fascinated or annoyed by the racket. For communities, it's a mix of tourism boost and nuisance. Some towns are hosting cicada festivals while others are just trying to keep the bugs out of their yards. Ecologically, it's a boon for predators like birds, but it's also a reminder of how climate and land use affects these cycles. The cicadas don't care about our schedules, they just show up when it's time. I think it's pretty cool to see nature do things like this. It's a break from the heavy news and a chance to appreciate the weirdness of our planet. Have you seen or heard these cicadas? Snap a pic and send it my way on social media. I'm curious how loud it really gets out there. Back to policy. There's been a lot of chatter this week about regulating social media platforms. Lawmakers are debating how to handle issues like misinformation, privacy, and the influence of big tech. This story has been bubbling up as Congress considers new rules, and it's got everyone from users to CEOs paying attention. The push comes from concerns about how platforms shape public opinion, especially after recent elections. There's talk of stricter content moderation, data protection laws, and even breaking up tech giants. On one side, folks want free speech protected. I'm there with them. On the other, there's worry about harmful content spreading unchecked. It's a tightrope, and no one's sure where it'll land. For users like us, this could change how we interact online. Maybe it's safer platform, maybe it's more restrictions. Small businesses that rely on social media ads are also watching closely, as new rules could hit their bottom line. The tech industry is lobbying hard, so this debate's far from over. I'm curious what you think about this. Should the government step in, or is it better to let platforms figure it out on their own? Social media is a huge part of our lives, so these decisions do matter. Share your thoughts, and let's see where this goes. From my point of view, any regulations regarding free speech on social media should not be allowed, as it is a direct infringement on the First Amendment here in the United States. Privacy and data security is different, and they should aim to protect our privacy and data. Well, weather's been making headlines this week again. The severe storms tearing through the South this week, tornadoes, flooding, and high winds have hit states like Alabama and Georgia, causing damage and disrupting lives. This story is a reminder of how powerful nature can be. Reports from April 20th show multiple tornadoes touching down, with homes destroyed and power outages affecting thousands. Emergency crews are working overtime, and communities are rallying to help those impacted. The National Weather Service has been issuing warnings, but these storms came fast and hard. Climate experts say we're seeing more intense weather due to changing patterns, while others say we've seen these patterns before, which makes preparation tougher though. For folks in the South, it's a scary reality, especially after recent years of hurricanes and storms. Rebuilding is going to take time, and the costs add up super quick. If you're in the affected areas, stay safe and check on your neighbors. For the rest of us, it's a call to think about how we support communities hit by disasters. Have you been through a storm like this? Let me know. Hit me up an email and show some love to those picking up the pieces. The Supreme Court's back in the spotlight, hearing a major case on voting rights this week. The case, which started arguments around April 22nd, deals with state laws that critics say make it harder for some groups to vote. It's a big deal for democracy, and it's got people on all sides fired up. The details involve challenges to laws requiring stricter voter ID or limiting mail-in ballots. Supporters say these rules prevent fraud. Opponents argue they disproportionately affect minorities and low-income voters. The court's decision could reshape elections for years, especially with 2026 midterms looming. This isn't just legal jargon, it's about who gets a say in our government. Past rulings have already changed things like early voting access, and this could go further. Both parties are watching closely, knowing the stakes for future campaigns. What do you think a fair voting system looks like? It's a tough question, and I'd love to hear your take. Drop me a line on X or any other social media platform, and let's talk about how we make sure everyone's voice is heard while allowing only U.S. citizens to vote. This one's going to have a big impact, so let's stay tuned. Some good news for a change. Researchers announced a breakthrough in Alzheimer's treatments this week. On April 23rd, a study showed promising results for a new drug that slows cognitive decline in early-stage patients. It's not a cure, but it's a step forward, and it's got people hopeful. The drug targets protein buildups in the brain, which are a hallmark of Alzheimer's. Trials showed patients had better memory and function compared to a placebo group. This is huge for millions of Americans affected, either as patients or caregivers. The FDA's fast-tracking review, so we might see it available soon. Of course, there are going to be hurdles. The drug's extremely expensive, and access could be an issue. Plus, it's only effective early on, so diagnosis timing will really matter in this case. Still, after years of setbacks in Alzheimer's research, this feels like a win for science. If you've got a loved one dealing with Alzheimer's, this news probably hits home. It's a reminder of how much research matters. What's your take on this medical breakthrough? Let's celebrate the progress while keeping the fight going. Next, let's talk about electric vehicles, or EVs, which are back in the news. This week, the government rolled out a new EV tax credit to boost adoption, but there's pushbacks from critics who say it's not enough or it's too costly. It's a classic case of trying to go green while keeping everyone happy. The credits, announced around April 24th, offer up to $7,500 for certain EV models, aiming to make them more affordable. The catch? Not all vehicles qualify, and some say the rules favor foreign manufacturers over American ones. Meanwhile, gas prices are creeping up. Depending on where you live, they're not up here where I am, so EVs are looking better to some drivers. On the flip side, there's concern about the cost to taxpayers and whether the grid can handle more EVs. Rural areas, where charging stations are scarce, feel left out. It's a balancing act between climate goals and practical realities, and not everyone's on board. I'm curious where you stand on EVs. Are they the future, or is it pushed too fast? Hit me up with your thoughts. This debate's only getting started, and it's going to shape how we get around for the years to come. Wrapping up, let's talk about a story that's hitting a lot of folks where it hurts: their bank accounts. This week, the U.S. Department of Education announced they're restarting collections on defaulted student loans starting May 5th, 2025, ending a 5-year pause that began during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 5 million borrowers are in default, and with another 4 million at risk, this could affect nearly a quarter of the 1.6 trillion student loan portfolio. Education Secretary Linda McMahon says it's about fiscal responsibility, but advocates are calling it a tough blow for struggling families. The pause on collections started in March 2020, giving borrowers a break from wage garnishments and tax refund seizures. Now, the Treasury Offset Program will kick in, potentially withholding Social Security benefits or up to 15% of wages after a 30-day notice. For many, this feels like a rug pull, especially since the Biden administration's loan forgiveness plans, like the SAVE program, got blocked by courts. Borrowers are being urged to enroll in income-driven repayment plans or loan rehabilitation. But with less than 40% of borrowers current on payments, the system's a mess. The move's got critics fired up. Advocates like Mike Pierce from the Student Borrower Protection Center call it cruel, saying it piles on economic stress when tariffs are already driving up costs. Borrowers who default often can't afford payments or never finish their degrees, and now they face credit hits and financial strain. The department's promising to email borrowers with options, but with staffing cuts and confusion over repayment plans, it's a lot to navigate. For some, it's not just debt, it's a barrier to buying a car or renting a home. If you're one of the millions with student loans, this is a wake-up call. Check your status on studentaid.gov and reach out to the Default Resolution Group to explore your options. What do you think about the restart? Is it fair to hold borrowers accountable, or is the timing all wrong? Drop your thoughts on X and let's keep this conversation going. This one's personal for a lot of us, so stay informed and stay proactive. In the end, though, when we signed those promissory notes, we did say we would pay back the money we borrowed. So therefore, if we've defaulted, it's kind of on us to pay those loans back. And that's a wrap for this week's Just a Dude in the News. We covered a lot from international tensions to natural wonders and everything in between. Thanks for hanging out with me as we sorted through the headlines. If you've got thoughts on any of these stories and just want to say what's up, find me on social media and let's keep the conversation going. Big thanks to all of you for listening and supporting the show. If you liked what you heard, subscribe, leave a review, or tell a friend to check us out. We'll be back next week with more news in that Just a Dude perspective. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll catch you on the next one.